On this Saturday morning, good morning. Chris Allen here on the Sam channel, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X, all sponsored by Ace Hardware Marketplace. It is the 9th of December and it is windy. It is warm. Dew points are starting to rise more into the 50s, and eventually it's going to get closer to 60 degrees. Now, what does that mean? It means the atmosphere is becoming a little more juiced up and a little more ready for the rain coming in and maybe help fuel some of the stronger storms we're expecting maybe later today. That's a big question mark whether we're going to see that or not. So let's get to it and I'll tell you what to expect as we go through the day. I'm doing this podcast at 6:45, so you can kind of get your time here as to if you're watching it later this morning or even into the early afternoon. You know that I said all this at 6:45 this morning and not whatever your current time is, so keep that in mind as well. Things can change between now and the afternoon, but as of 6:45 this morning, here's the way the satellite view looks. You can see that we've got clusters of thick clouds moving through the area, but we also have some breaks in those clouds back to the west, especially. And that's where we're going to have to watch for the possibility of some of these cloud breaks, like you're seeing back here ahead of the low pressure system. As we get into the day, the thick clouds that are over Bowling Green right now may, for a time, allow some sunshine to come through. And if that happens, that's going to heat up the surface where we are down at the ground level. And that's going to help more moisture get organized and more instability. This is the up and down motion that happens with these kind of systems, and that's what's got to be watched. And of course, the fronts are back to the west, an area of low pressure. So this is almost like a classic spring storm setup in which we have the potential for some stronger storms this afternoon and maybe even a few severe storms. Now, I know today being the 9th of December, Monday is the 11th, the 2 year anniversary of the tornadoes that happened back in 2021. Okay. So I know you're thinking, is this going to happen again? Well, we never say never, but I can tell you that things are not exactly set up the way they were back on December 11th of 2012. So, with that in mind, if we should get some of the clouds filling back in here before the front happens, and we're getting some rain too. Let me clear the board here so you can see that, because that's going to help, I think, uh, kind of put a little bit of a damper, if you will, on the possibility of tornadoes. Again, I'm not going to rule out that possibility, but here's the radar view. And as you can see here, we've got some showers that are pulling through middle Tennessee, and these are going to move up into southern Kentucky as we go through the morning. And then we have some just off to the north and west of us along the Ohio River. Some of this will start to kind of congeal a little bit. And then we have the main area of thunderstorms, which is back here in Arkansas. That's going to come later as the front begins to move east. So we've got all this going on here. Really, bottom line is it's going to have to play out. There is no way right now to say this is going to happen and that's going to happen and here's how it's all going to play out. We just don't know that. This is one of those situations where we have to continue to monitor through the day to figure out how it's going to play out and where it's going to play out. We do know there are some knowns here. The unknowns are what I just mentioned. Would there be tornadoes? That's an unknown. The knowns are it's going to be windy and it's going to be wet. Those two things we're sure of 100%. We're sure of those things. Spin in the atmosphere, there's some here, and I can kind of highlight that. We've got winds coming out of the south near the surface and southwest. But then we have upper winds that are coming in from the west and northwest. Well, naturally, that's going to cause a bit of a spin in the atmosphere. And should that happen with some added instability, the sun comes out for several hours, then all bets are off and the unknowns become knowns, if you know what I mean. Then we're looking at um, a more serious setup. But in this case, we're going to keep it to wet, windy, warm. That's another known. We're going to have to see how this plays out to see if the unknowns become something a little more serious. So we've got to wait on that. That actually, all of that has to kind of play out. We can't just say right here at 6:45 on Saturday morning, yes, there will be tornadoes, and yes, there will be all this. Just can't. It's just there's too much of a window of uncertainty, and so it's one big question mark at this point. But I guarantee you this: here's another known. I'll be watching it all day. Okay, and Darius and Noah at News 40. Um, we'll be watching it all day. We're all on standby. The crew is on standby. Should it turn into something more serious, we'll be there on your TV, streaming on Facebook. Um, we'll There'll be alerts on Sam. We've got it covered. We're prepared. So hopefully you are too. And I would suggest that you get your let me reach back here and get my weather radio. So you need to have this turned on. If you have one of these weather radios that I've been going around to Ace Hardware stores and we've been selling and programming these, make sure this button on the side is turned on. And right now mine is off. So I'm gonna turn it on. I turn it off only because I'm in here recording these videos, but you at home should always have that button on. If that button is not on, you're not going to receive any alerts. None. It'll sit there and it'll show you the time. It'll act like a clock, but that's all it is once that button is turned off. So turn that button on. Make sure you have your antenna extended and everything plugged in. You hit that button and make sure that it's working. You can hear something. You should always hear something when you hit that main bar right there. Okay, the weather bar. It says weather snooze, but ignore the snooze. Weather bar. And then that way you know when a warning is going to come and you're prepared. All right. So, and again, it's just in case you may not even need it, but I do anticipate there could be a couple of warnings, mostly severe thunderstorm warnings and maybe some flood advisories because the rain's going to be heavy. Uh, so, tornado warnings, I'm not saying no. So, we just have to be prepared. Okay. I'm not trying to scare anybody and all that, but it does make you think back to 2012, and it makes you think, even in December, these things can happen. We've seen it before. We have been testament to that fact that it's happened before, and so because of that, the Storm Prediction Center has laid us out in a level 2 slight risk. It's been a while since we've been in a yellow level 2 slight risk for severe weather, but it does include the Bowling Green, Southern Kentucky area, and all the way up to about E Town. And then to the east, over toward Somerset, to the west, over toward Murray and Mayfield. Yeah, the same communities affected by the tornadoes in 2012. I know it's kind of eerie to think about it, but I don't want you to dwell on the apprehension or the concern or the fear. I don't fear. That's the thing you could do. Don't fear that this is going to be that again. It may not. But there's always a possibility that if every ingredient, the unknowns become known, then is the time to take action, not to panic, not to fear, but to take action. So you should prepare just in case. And it's like, well, why can't you just tell us if it's going to happen or not? Because I'm not God. And I don't care what meteorologist is out there, what backseat weather person is out there taking this and putting this together and all these colorful models and all these maps and all this stuff. And look out. No, just prepare. Just calmly prepare. That's the way it should be year round. It doesn't matter. Around here, it can happen any time. So just be prepared. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to fear or to get, crazy about this. Just prepare and you'll be okay. I promise. All right. So here's a look at the current radar and advisories as of right now, 5 minutes before 7 on a Saturday morning. We're just seeing a lot of rain, and there are some thunderstorms, as I mentioned, that you can see back here into Arkansas and Missouri. See some lightnings. There's a couple of strikes with these cells that are coming up toward the Pennyrile Park 9. That's more into, well, just west of Madison, Eddyville, Fredonia, areas, Webster County, into western Kentucky, north of the land between the lakes. And then there's one north of Hopkinsville that's a thunderstorm. So near Crofton. That's what's happening right now. But there are no watches, there are no warnings. The most intense thunderstorms are the ones that are over Arkansas right now. And you can see that Searcy up to Newport, Batesville, just south of Batesville, Arkansas, all of this north of Little Rock. And they're all moving northeast toward the Memphis area, which is back in here. And eventually, Jonesboro, all these areas, you're going to start to see this start to fill in. And this is the storm activity that's going to come our direction later this afternoon. What's the timing? I'm looking at any time after 2, 3 o'clock seems to be the best time to get this really stronger line of thunderstorms coming in. It's all going to congeal into a big long line of thunderstorms. So that's what we're going to see as we go through the day. All right. Let's go to the Kentucky Mesonet because I want to show you not only temperatures, which are very mild, even warm this morning. We're in the upper 50s to low 60s, but also the winds are a big deal. So here are the winds coming out of the south at sustained at 10, 15 or so miles per hour. Let me show you the gusts. Now the gusts are going 15, 19, 20, 26. Yeah. We've got some pretty good breezes, and you see that the winds are coming in due south or from the south going north. So this is going to be the component at the ground level. I talked about the southerly winds, and then above us, the winds are going a different direction. And that's why it's a concern that sorry, I didn't turn that on for you. There are the winds. Again, southerly winds, you see the arrows going north. Yeah, it's the concern is a little bit of twisting in the wind, causing a little bit of a spin. That will have to be watched, of course. It's going to be breezy all day. That's not going to change. What about the rest of the weekend? Well, here's a look at the model blender. So we're going to go 65, 66, maybe even 67 today. That's really warm for this part of December. Then the temperatures are going to come crashing down as we get into tonight. We're looking at a low of 37, 36, 37, just enough to keep everything still liquid form and not frozen. But tomorrow morning, when it's cold enough, and as we drop through the day, temperatures are going to be dropping. You see the high of only 43. That's maybe pushing it a bit. It is going to be breezy and much colder, and then falling to 25 25 tomorrow night. Now, with that, if there's any leftover moisture, most of the moisture will be gone, but if there's any leftover moisture, it's going to make those raindrops turn into some snowflakes, but nothing of impact, nothing that's going to accumulate. It is going to be brief when it happens, but we do have that. And then the next few days, just chilly, but we warm back to where we should be this time of the year, which is 51, the average high temperature. We're going to be close to that and above it on a few days as we get into next week. So this will be the warmest day that we see for quite a while. Pretty good while, as a matter of fact. All right, let's look at the maps. I know I'm taking extra time today, but I just want to make sure I get all there. So here's the scenario that we're starting with right now, with just lighter showers that are beginning, like I showed you on radar, that are beginning to show up here at 7 a.m. as I do this podcast. Warm front to the west, and then a cold front, two cold fronts actually. This is the second one, is the one that's going to bring in the much colder air overnight tonight and during the day tomorrow. The first one is the stormy part of the system. So the warm front's with us today, and then everything just kind of comes together in one big line. See that this is this afternoon. You see that darker area of green, and the front begins to just a bit until that low pressure system rides along the front. That's going to act like a sponge. It's just going to squeeze out all the moisture in the atmosphere and just dump it right on us. And that's why I think we'll have some heavy rain at times. Now, the focus of severe weather, if there's going to be tornadoes, things like that, it is going to be maybe parts of Louisiana, Arkansas, but especially Mississippi. But there's enough instability, if I should say, if there's enough instability here, and we don't, we don't keep the clouds here, and the sun comes out here later this morning and through the early to mid afternoon, then look out. That red shaded area will move up into southern Kentucky, but just barely. We're kind of on a border, kind of on a fence here, whether it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. Further south, and I would say even from Nashville to Memphis and further south, that red area, I think, should be a little more filled in here, but they're the ones that are going to get the brunt of the system. You see that area expands even more through Louisiana and Arkansas and Mississippi as we get into tonight. By that time, the front will be approaching Bowling Green. So, really, any severe weather threat is going to be further south of us and east of us. And then here's early morning day. This is when we could see the colder air begin to change some of the rain over to a mix. But again, not a big deal. It's not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to get cold. Tomorrow's going to be kind of cold and nasty with the winds. You see here, higher elevations, you get the natural lift in the atmosphere. That's going to cause a little more in the way of some light snow or a mix in the, mountainous areas and the hills over in eastern Kentucky. And then by Monday, midday, high pressure builds in, all that's gone. So we're not going to have to worry about much of anything more than that. But today, have your phone, ready to go with alerts. Hopefully, you've got those set up. Um, be watching News 40. Uh, be watching for the possibility of, you know, uh, alerts and bulletins and things like that. Be listening to Sam 100.7. We will push through immediately. They're automatic. Any kind of warning, a watch or warning goes out, you'll hear it on Sam 100.7. And then, as I pointed out, have your weather radios, have that little black button turned on so you can get the warnings, and just, go about your day, but just understand later it might get worse, but it may not. It may not. Let's cross our fingers that we keep enough clouds in here that we don't have to worry about really a big threat of severe weather. Right now, it's conditional, but we'll see. In the meantime, I've taken 20 minutes of your time. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll stay on this, watch it, and keep you informed. Different sources all throughout the day and night. Thanks for watching.